Hopeful, hopeful. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, beautiful people? Great morning, great afternoon, great. You fill in the blank of whatever time of day you're tuning into this afternoon. You are blessed to be stressed. You're blessed to be alive, blessed to actually be able to get to tune in. And that's what it's all about, folks. All right, so let me just get everything shared out, and you already see what we're talking about today. We are in another Wintrepreneur Wednesday. Oh, what a day. What a day. What a day of the week it is. Actually, the final one of June of 2025. Final Wintrepreneur Wednesday, final Wednesday. So we're going to close out the month of June with personal story here. We're going to close out the month of June, understanding where our goals are, what it needs to be. And as it says right there, we're diving into the concept of attaching a number to your name. This is important, folks, in our creators world where everybody wants to create this and put this logo out there, put this merch out there, put this website up, and you doing this and you got this. You got to put some numbers to your name, man. You got to put some numbers to it, right? You got to put some numbers to your name so you understand exactly what your value is, what you can bring in, regardless of what the number is. The number needs to be attached on your name so you can align yourself with a vision. All right, living in vision. Remember, we talked about that on the Father's Day. We talked about that on our Father's Day Stay Hired Sunday, where we talked about the concept of not we, but me, as in, I pulled up a video with Chuck Pagano, and he was talking about, as he was battling cancer and things like that, he was talking to his football team, and he's talking about living in vision and not in circumstance. All right, if you want to live in vision, at some point we got to start attaching some numbers. You got to put some numbers to your name. All right, so all that being said, before I get too deep into the topic today, because I do have a habit of jumping right into it, let me just introduce myself to anybody that may be new to this channel, new to my world, new to what I'm all about. First of all, my name, it's Aswan Crookshank. I am your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time, very soon to be 6-time published author and educator. I created a whole system, a whole brand, a whole philosophy that's all about taking the innovative teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field and aligning them with business owners and businesses so to have a staff and a group of employees that moves as efficiently, as cohesively, has that same has that same passion as a championship high school or youth football team. That's what we do around here. We translate that passion that you see from those young, hungry high school or youth football players, and we translate that into the business world. So you have that same energy when you're walking into your business. You have that same cohesion. You have that same, look, I'm going to go out and get this shit. You want that in your organization. Without that, I'm telling you, I've seen it over and over again. Without that hunger, without that energy, you got a business that will fail mercilessly. It will be the worst day when you have to just shut the doors because you don't have enough passionate employees that really, really love what they do. So to get involved with all of that, let me just get through a couple of announcements here, and we are going to get right into Wintrepreneur Wednesday. Wintrepreneur Wednesday, which if you don't know what that term means, give it a couple minutes here, and I will break all of that down for you. So first and foremost, business owners, as I just said, if you have not yet, go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. I create a very easy to understand process for you, 10-step process that you can utilize right now that makes it so your staff moves with a whole lot more cohesion, that your staff has the understanding of what it is they need to do. We have a very, 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 very simple formula that we utilize around here, all right? It's number one, establishing measurables. What are your measurables? What are your goals? What are the things that need to get done today? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The shit needs to be done today. You take that mentality and then you add on to a professional distance. All right. You as an owner, you have to make sure you're creating a professional distance from the folks that are working with you or working for you, however it is you want to call it. Your professional distance is incredibly important. It's taking one, you add to the next, and at that point, you will have a productive environment. Understand, that is the core. That is the core to how organizations like the one I was referring to earlier, these championship high school and youth football organizations, not necessarily pros in college because there's money involved, but when we're talking about high school and youth, there's a measurable, there's a goal from every single player. Look, we want to be running this play in this amount of seconds against this type of defense, and we want this one being able to get open if this safety comes down and reacts to the run. All sorts of measurables are being in play are in place when you run a play during practice. Then there's the professional distance. There's a coach who, again, all the players are probably going to love a great deal, but they're also going to hate him when he gets in their butt, right? There's that owner, that superior that's going to get on your ass when you're not doing the right thing. However, going to love you up the same way when you show improvement and you get yourself better and you're doing things that are conducive to your development. That it's going to be that give and take. There's a professional distance that needs to be established. That's when there's a productive environment. Can have fun. We could, joke and, shoot the shit and all that kind of stuff. But there's also work that needs to be done. You'll see a productive environment. You want that. Now, if you like the way I'm sounding, if you like all of this and you're ready to pull the trigger, you don't want to just waste time with a free guide, and you say, hey, man, look, I want Aswan coming into my organization right now and speaking to my employees, and I want him to create that energy, create that passion, create that system within my organization. You can do that as well. Actually, I love folks like you. All right. So just go to makeyourmove.com. You can book me to speak right there. You can shop. You can shop there. You can purchase some books. You can do all the research that you need to do on me, which I'm sure you will do if you are smart to do the research and stuff like that. And we could book a meeting and talk about your options, talk about how to get it paid for and all that kind of stuff. And all of those options are available on makeyourmove.com. That is makeyourmove.com. All right. So Wintrepreneur Wednesday this week, it is going along with the theme this week. Now, the theme this week, we have been talking all about the difference between being called out and being called up. All right. So when we're talking about that, so much of knowing the difference between being called up and called out is an internal thing. All right. It's one of those things that's very personal to you, and you have to know what your money making skills are. You have got to go out into the world. You got to go into the world, have an idea, fail at the idea, but see where the idea came from, understand where the sales came from. What was your strength at, and what did you do that made it so you were able to produce numbers and produce a result? Knowing those answers will give you an incredible amount of clarity in terms of what your next move needs to be, what it is you need to be all about, how exactly you're going to get to the places that you are aspiring to get to. This is a very, very key concept, okay, because a lot of people are afraid to take this risk. You have to take this risk for yourself, meaning you have to go out, try to sell something, try to sell yourself, get your ass kicked up and down, right? Get smacked around like a two-year-old boy, and come back and say, look, I did it. I did what I need to do. Now I know what's going to produce the results. Now I know what's going to produce the numbers. Now I know exactly how I fit in. And we're going to dive deeper into this as I get through the article today. All right. So let's just get right into it. And as usual, I will, provide any commentary that needs to be provided as I speak and I read through the article. Also, make sure, hear me, folks, make sure liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing this out. This channel is going places. It's going places. I'm telling you right now, it's going places between this channel, Film session Saturday. Then the Making the Move Swiftly podcast, we're back on Spotify. You'll see me republishing or re-uploading a lot of the episodes that I've done because, way back when I started the Move Swiftly podcast, I would put music on it. Spotify took down the previous feed, but there's a new feed up now. It's called the Move Swift. You'll see the +LY podcast. So all that stuff is now in the works, and everything is kind of getting back to where it was before, Spotify did what they did. So anyway, let's get right into the article, and we'll go from there. All right. So Wintrepreneur Wednesday. Attach a number to your name. Oh man. Look at that dude, man. That was a time. That was a time back then, man. Living in St. Petersburg, I was just transitioning from St. Petersburg to South Florida, and I am one of the best decisions I could have made. South Florida, park it right here. All right, so Wintrepreneur Wednesday. Attach a number to your name. Today's marks the final Wintrepreneur Wednesday of June, and we're closing it out by featuring the ultimate Wintrepreneur, yours truly. Not only did I coin the term, but I'm also about 60% of the way through writing my 6th book, which is entirely about how to become a Wintrepreneur. So I don't just talk this life, I live it every day. All right. Before we dive into today's core message, here are 2 quick things. You can now rep the movement by grabbing your Wintrepreneur t-shirt. Oh yes, that's another thing. So go ahead, grab your Wintrepreneur tees. Go get yours. We're building a community, building an army, building a group of folks that call themselves Wintrepreneurs. That's what we're looking to build here, folks. Go and grab your Wintrepreneur tees, makeyouMove.com. And as always, here's a reminder of the definition. So now we're going to get into the definition of what it actually means to be a Wintrepreneur, right? Wintrepreneur, a person with a strong entrepreneurial vision for their life who's been blessed to find a job that aligns with that vision and pays them every 2 weeks. All right, now let's get into it. What does it mean, folks? What exactly does it mean to attach a number to your name? All right. After graduating from Stony Brook University, I had one simple goal: work in professional sports before the age of 30. Coaching, scouting, sales, I didn't care. I just wanted in. At the same time, I was thinking about my ideal life partner. At the time, I envisioned marrying a Miami Heat dancer. No lie. So let's just break this down, because I know when I say that to people, a lot of people kind of start chuckling a little bit, because Heat dancers aren't really taking that seriously in terms of intellect. And then you think about the intellect I have and the way I am now versus a Heat dancer. It's like, come on, bro. People usually start chuckling. Here's the truth about the situation, all right? And this is the truth about any male who has been programmed to be the provider, right? Any heterosexual male, we're all programmed to be the ones who are providing and figuring out what it is we're going to be doing for our life, what it is our work is going to be. One of my favorite books is Bobby Bowden's, I believe it's 50 Ways to Be. Let me see if I could. It's 50 Lessons on Leadership. Let me look it up real quick. B. Bowden, the late Bobby Bowden, 50 Lessons on Leadership, I think is the name of the book. Yes, this is it. Yep, 50 years of, this is the book right here, 50 years of leadership. Yes. So in this book, he talked a great deal about what a person does for work, right? And more specifically, he spoke on the men and what the men, again, we're speaking in heterosexual men, especially former football players that, we're trained and we're programmed to be the aggressor. We are in a situation where we're praised to be aggressive and to know what it is we need to be doing, know what it is we need to be doing on this play, how it is we need to be reacting, how aggressive we are, all of the things that come with being a player. Again, we're taught to be very, very masculine human beings and things like that, which I think is a very, very good thing. It just needs to be programmed, and it needs to be controlled and understood that everybody didn't have that opportunity. And this is why it's so important to really appreciate the fact that you get to play the game, right? So he talked about this idea of when you ask a person what they do, when you ask a person what they want to do, they attach so much of their identity into the work that they do. And that's true for any man or woman, but it's particularly true for men, because you don't get it's not necessarily a thing for somebody to have the aspiration to be a stay-at-home dad. You don't hear that very often. It's not something, and it's because we don't carry the kid. It's just a natural order of life. The woman carries the kid, so it is very understood or understandable for her to become a stay-at-home mom, or be okay with being a stay-at-home mom. Difference with the men is the men don't carry the kid. It's not our job to be the ones actually going through and changing their bodies and going through all that. So our natural programming comes from the fact that, hey, we want to know what it is we want to do to provide, because that's our role. That is the role of a man. All right. That is the way it's supposed to be working. It is God, it's man, then women. Not to say women aren't, it can't be an equal partnership between a husband and a wife, but there's certain roles that are just as important as the other role. All right. That's just the key. So I reject this, a lot of this feminist bullshit that we have to hear, that we've had to hear for the past 4 years. It's ridiculous. I mean, just last night, actually, I was talking to my girl, and there was something that I saw online, some clip I saw online, where there was a black woman holding other black women accountable for this celebration that we have of feminism and stay-at-home moms, and or being a single mom, and how that's more so now looked at as some sort of a powerful thing, or being praised. You're being praised for being a single mom and all that kind of stuff, which again is not the way it should be, right? So here's my point of saying all this. When I mentioned, I put this in the when I write, I wanted to work in professional sports before the age of 30, coaching, scouting skills. I didn't care. I just wanted in at the same. So once I figured that out, once I figured that, hey, being in pro sports was my goal after I was through playing football. Once a man has a very clear idea and a very clear picture on what it is he wants to do with his life, the next question that will get asked by that man, at least at that age, is, okay, who do I want to do it with? All right, who do I want to do life with? Who exactly would be the perfect life partner for me, given that I've already figured out that part in terms of what it is I want to do. Now, that's where I can admittedly say I got it completely wrong, because I was looking at it from a surface level. The deep thinking that I put into figuring out what I wanted to do professionally was not the deep thinking that I was thinking about when it comes to who it is I wanted to do life with. Do you see the difference now? Do you see where things kind of got jumbled up? Because mentally I was on some, okay, yeah, you want to work in professional sports and you want to, go out in sales and do all that. So it makes sense, right, to be with someone who is a Miami Heat. Miami Heat just happened to be my favorite basketball team, and I was moving to South Florida. But it makes sense to be with one of these one of these pro dancers for this team, because they can understand what it is I would want to do professionally, and it'll be, again, a lot of surface level stuff, not considering, hey, these folks are not. They're not as mature to have mature conversations like the woman I'm with now. There's a maturity there. There's an understanding there. There's a balance. There's a foundation there that would just plain and simple wouldn't have been there had I gone after the type of person that I thought I wanted to go after. So you got to understand that when you're pursuing professional goals, and when you have a clear picture of these professional goals, it's very, very important that you also become incredibly clear on what exactly it's going to take for you to get there, and what's going to be needed in your personal life as well. All right. That has to be under consideration. And that's where it was coming from. And that's something I've learned through experience. So mentioned Marion at Miami Heat Dance. It's funny too, because when I got to St. Petersburg, I interviewed for the sales. I ultimately became a sales associate. My first job, it was a sales associate for Orange Theory Fitness, right? And the person who interviewed me, shout out to Drew, the interviewer, he goes, okay, is there anything that you would want to do if you're successful at Orange Theory and all that stuff. And I said, well, I am going to be marrying a Miami Heat dancer one day. Or no, I didn't say by. I said I'm going to be married a pro cheerleader one day. And they all started laughing. And it made sense why I would work at an Orange Theory, because I wanted to meet one of these, pro cheerleaders and all that. So it was kind of a joking situation. But as you go through being a wintrepreneur and you go through this life where you really have a structure, or you have an understanding that you have to really do a deeper dive in terms of who you're doing life with. All of that stuff becomes a very, very important decision. And you have got to make sure you're talking to people and getting help where you need to get help. You're not meant to just figure all this shit out on your own. All right. So why, and we're going to get it. Now I sort of just started explaining this, but I'll read it directly for you podcast listeners. I am reading this directly from the article now. If you're listening to this on the Move Swiftly podcast, the #1 show on innovative teamwork. All right. Still going to be #1 regardless, even if I have to switch RSS feeds. So anyway, why? Because I was a huge Heat fan. I dreamed of living in South Florida, and I had just landed a job with the Miami Dolphins Foundation doing sales. I was on track, working hard and slowly checking boxes. During my time with the Miami Dolphins Foundation, the Miami Heat hosted 2 networking events. All right. The first one was a mess. It was an absolute mess. No structure, no formal introductions. You were basically on your own, but I went anyway for the experience and the dancers. Remember that. Let me just dive into that. Let me dive into that just a little more. I have to dive into it just a little more, because at the networking event, I actually happened to meet. He was if I'm not mistaken, he was a part of the event. He wasn't working in sports, but he was a part of the event. And it was funny because I was telling him that I was already kind of had my foot in the door with the Dolphins or whatever. And I was like, I scheduled this just because I wanted to also meet the Heat dancers, and hopefully I could network with them and we could, go this and do that. So I was in it. I was in it all the way. I was not playing no games. And that's just how I go after stuff. When it's something that I believe I want, I'm going to go after it and figure it out. Right. So, but yeah, that first network, as far as the event, it was a mess. We get there and we don't know anybody. They just say, all right, guys, thank you for coming. And, so-and-so works here. Good luck. Figure it out. That's not how you do it. At this point, this was maybe about the 4th or 5th networking event that I had been to. Washington Nationals put one on. Make sure we're all good here. Washington Nats. Yeah, the Nats put one on, and they did a great job. They did a great job setting everything up, because they had us all in the room, and they asked us. The lady who was hosting the event, she started off by saying, "Hey, look, I want to tell you guys something right now. You're not going to get hired today. Not going to get hired today. No one's going to hire you, but it's going to be a great opportunity for you guys to build these relationships." And then she also created like a prompt question to say, "Hey, what's your greatest sports accomplishment?" And I remember actually leaving that first. That was my first experience at a networking event for the Washington Nationals. I remember leaving that experience, and I kind of shook her hand. I was like, "Man, thanks. That was good how you hosted it, and I had a great time, yada yada." And before I left, she asked me that same question. What was your greatest sports accomplishment? So, if you're into hosting networking events and you're into doing these things, make sure you have a personable, you have a way of making sure people stay engaged. All right. You have to think deeper than just, hey, the people coming in can figure it out on their own. It's very important that you make it very, very personable. All right. So let's get back into the article now. So during my time with the Miami Dolphins Foundation, the Heat hosted 2 networking events. From the experience and the dances. All right. So that night, I did meet a Heat executive. We spoke. He said to email him, and I follow up. No response. It happened. So let me give you some more context with that. So as far as that particular person. I remember his name, and because the event didn't have much structure and we didn't really get a backstory on who we were talking to, I remember as I was meeting the other Heat executives, I was telling them, hey, I'm already with the Miami Dolphins Foundation. I'm doing this, doing that. And I was asking him how we can incorporate. Now, I understand I was doing two things. I was not only doing things with the Miami Dolphins Foundation, but I was also working as a trainer, boxing trainer at 9 Rounds. So these were two worlds that were merging. I'm like, look, I go to the people who work for the Miami Heat, and I'm like, hey, how can we structure some business? How can we do some, whether it's getting young basketball players to show up at a park somewhere. I'm training them on the boxing. Y'all got the basketball and whatever it is. What kinds of marketing things can we do? Because I'm in the community. I'm meeting the people in South Florida already between those two positions. Let me know how we can connect. So he wasn't particularly the person, but he's like, look, email me and then I'll connect you with the right person. So what I did exactly that. I emailed him the next morning. Why am I talking? Why am I talking? Let me make sure. Because this is the thing. This is trackable info. Okay, this is trackable info. Okay, let me see. It would have been like 2000. Let me see. I think it could possibly still be around. It might. I had to delete a bunch of emails the other day. Sent emails. It would have been like show all results. Let me see. It's very possible that it's still there. Let's see. I can't find it. It's probably not there anymore, but what it is. Anyway, I email him and I don't get a response. Long story short, all right, I email him. He doesn't respond, even though he said he was going to be the guy that, connected me with the person I need to connect with based on what he and I were talking about. So that happens, and it happens more often than not. I do it now myself, seeing that I get a lot more emails. Me, myself, that does happen. And there was a point in life actually where that would frustrate me, but now considering all the things that actually do go on, it's just going to happen. Emails they go in, they go out. It's hard to keep up with them, which is why you got to be putting action. You got to be making sure you're taking action, meeting people, shaking their hands, looking them in the eye, and trying to get as much out of them on a face-to-face conversation before, just sending an email and hoping something's going to work, right? So anyway, it happens. The second networking event, night and day, all right? Reading directly from the article again from my podcast listeners. All right. The Heat organization clearly got the feedback. There were intros, clear structure, and better options to connect. Yes, this is what happened. So what I just described to you was the first networking event. Now I went back for a second one, and it was a completely different experience. The venue was different. They had us on like the patio outside of, now it's KZ Arena. Before it was American Airlines Arena. They had us on the patio. The sun was coming, like the sun was setting, and they gave a great intro, and they said it when they opened up the event. He goes, all right, we got you guys' feedback. Last time we did this, and you guys didn't know anyone, this, that, and the third. So they had all the people like on a panel. And everyone on the panel, and they introduced themselves, and then they came down after they introduced themselves, and we knew exactly who we needed to meet or what they were all about. What did they do with the organization? All right, that was the difference. So here was now that same executive the one who never replied, got on the mic, and what he said stuck with me forever. So let me just make sure I'm clear when I'm saying this. All right. So the same executive that said he was going to email or said he was going to respond to me or said he was going to connect me with who I need to connect with, he was on the panel. He was on the panel speaking on what he did. And the reason that I'm even doing this episode, the reason I even have the mentality of attaching a number to your name is because at this point I had been working in sports and working in fitness and have done all these things and, been in it. I'm like in the grind. This was before I put any books out, before podcasts, before any of that. I'm just in the grind trying to find my space and trying to find how I'm going to, structure it and create opportunities and this, that, and the third. So, you had the person that I had already had an interaction with, and everybody else just basically, this is what I do. This is how you get a job in sports. This is what I do. This is how you get a job in sports. And then the name is escaping me right now, but he got on the mic and he said, this is what he said, reading directly from the articles now podcast, reading directly from the articles. I gave you all that backstory, all that context, so you understand this is exactly what he said. He said, all right, guys, look, if you want a job in sports, what I want to see, what the resumes and the things that really stick out to me is I want to see a number that's attached to your name. Now, he said it over time. Like I wrote it, the way it's written here is you want a job in sports, then I want to see the number attached to your name. He said it in a more of a genuine tone. He had a genuine tone where he was thinking about it, all the things he lived through, everything that he's about, all the people he knows, all the trials and tribulations, everything that goes on in his day, and the people that actually make a career out of this, that actually make something out of this. And he said, I want to see if there's a number attached to your name. Now, everybody who was a part of the event, like the networking event, they're like, oh, you felt the energy. You felt the energy because now instead of someone getting up there kind of just telling their resume and pitching their resume and all that bullshit, no, now it's like, okay, who's out there hustling? Who's out there getting after it? Who's out there, writing this book or doing this and selling this shirt and doing? Who's out there getting this money, B? Who's out there going out and making sales, making opportunities, creating them? Because that's what sports is. This was something I had to learn on my own. I didn't realize how much sales and making sure you're knowing your numbers and creating sales opportunities for yourself, how much that relates to the sports business. It's the same fucking thing. It's the same thing. It's about what can sell. All right. The beautiful thing is that sports provides a community. Sports provides a place in which you're going to meet people, but you still got to make your sales. All right. You still got to make your sales. You still got to go out, get your numbers, and you still got to. And the thing about great sales, folks, is you're not doing something that at least hopefully, all right. I can't speak for everybody, but the best sales folks that I've been around, the sales folks that have been really successful are just simply selling themselves. They're not selling you bullshit. They're selling you something that they genuinely believe in. And when he said that, I was like, okay, it makes sense, because at this point I had spent 2 years being one of those top sellers with the foundation. I had known the things that were able to get them to buy these raffle tickets from me. And as I'm talking to them and, me being such a diehard football fan, they they want to give back to their community and use it. All sorts of things I was saying to them to really get them to buy those tickets right in the moment. And that's where it started connecting with me, to where even though he didn't respond to the email that I'd sent him, at that point, it was like a year or a couple months went by, there was still a solid connection when you think about the concept of attaching a number to your name. All right. So going back to the article directly now. And that was it. That was the truth about sports, business, and life. Numbers matter. All right. Go back in a couple of weeks ago, I did a whole week-long episode about what the numbers mean. What do the numbers say? Just go back and look at how do you look at the numbers, the ways to look at numbers and all that. It's not about what you say you can do. It's about what you've proven you can deliver. For the people in the back, folks, come on. For the folks in the back and all the way in the back that ain't heard that did not hear what I just said. Okay. It's not about what you say you can do. It's about what you've proven you can deliver. What have you proven you can deliver on? All right. That's what makes the sale. It's one thing to do. People do a whole lot of motherfucking talking, a whole lot of talking. It's a different story when you ask them to prove something that they can deliver on. Deliverables. All right. Deliverables, measurables, and deliverables. All right. That's where we're talking when you start getting to these certain levels of success. And when you start talking to corporate, even use the term corporate, but you're talking to high level individuals, professionals about what they do. It's about deliverables, measurables, not possibilities and hypotheticals. All right. That's not what it's not going to get you very far. All right. Hypotheticals and possibilities, that is for little kids, man. That's for kids. Deliverables and measurables. Okay. Now we in some business. Now we talking about doing something serious. Now we in something serious. All right. So here's the question. What's your number? At the time, going directly back to the article, folks. All right. So what is your number? At the time, I heard him say that I didn't need validation. I had already become one of the top sellers for the Miami Dolphins Foundation. Across 2 seasons, he may not have replied to my email, but the number spoke. That's what attaching a number to your name looks like. So here's my challenge to every entrepreneur reading this. What number can you attach to your name? Sales generated, people you've trained, events you've led, clients you've helped, episodes you dropped. This is how we build credibility. This is how we build credibility. This is how we separate from the crowd. This is how we prove our alignment and back it with performance. You want to be a entrepreneur, then don't just show up. Track the work, okay? Put up numbers so loud they can't ignore you. Hashtag Wintrepreneur Wednesday. Hashtag attach a number. Hashtag leadership by example. Hashtag make your move. Hashtag move swiftly. Hashtag the sports business. Hashtag entrepreneurship. I usually don't read the hashtags like that, but that's what it's all about. All right, let's dive into this as I close you out. When you're thinking about attaching a number to your name, there's so much more complexity that goes with this. All right. And I'm going to close you out just understanding this, because there are times in which you can get discouraged if you're not bringing in a certain amount of money, right? You can get discouraged if let's say you start a podcast and you only last for 10 episodes, or you start a podcast and you can't get enough guests to schedule and you're not getting people to commit, or you start up a new job, you start up as a realtor and you're not getting enough sales, whatever it is. The numbers may not blow you off the charts, right? However, I want to break this down. I want to break this down back to the football examples, and get ready. Like I said, get ready. There's a lot of football examples I'm going to be giving you throughout my time. And then if you're going to be in this world for a while, just get used to hearing a lot of football stories, right? But my favorite coach I ever played for, his name is Coach Brian Davis. He introduced us to a concept back when we were kids to 4 yards and a cloud of dust. All right, 4 yards and a cloud of dust. And what he means when he says 4 yards and a cloud of dust is you as a running team are just taking the 4 yard gain. All right, it's I formation right, 33 dive, and it's boom, take those 4 yards, boom, take those 4 yards, boom, take those 4 yards. However, and now the reason I'm bringing it up is because gaining 4 yards isn't a lot of yardage. You need 10 yards to get a first down. So we would have to get 4 yards consistently for 3 plays in order to get a first down. So if that's not a huge number of yardage when you look at the stats. I'm relating that to you as a business owner. I'm relating that to you as someone that is trying to establish and gain control of your life, to where as long as you're producing a consistent number, then you have to have it structured in the right way. So let me just finish off explaining the example when it comes to football. 4 yards in a cloud of dust. He would say it all the time. Bang out those 4 yards. Bang out those 4 yards. Bang out those 4 yards. Lower your shoulder. Hit somebody, get it to where that defense is really moving and you're just taking the 4 yard gain. And eventually, by the time you do that for 3 quarters. You do that for 3 quarters. By the time you get to the fourth quarter, and you're running it to perfection, then you start gaining the 40-yard gain. Then you start breaking 50-yard touchdowns. You start breaking 60-yard touchdowns because these safeties creep up. Or even we'll even take it from not even youth, but go into like a college example. Those safeties start creeping up. You hit the big touchdown over the top because the safeties are creeping up for the run, and you're running these things to perfection. This is what we mean when I say, what numbers can you attract to your name? What kind of consistent numbers are available for people to consume and to look you up? So when you understand the consistency in the numbers, then you know what organizations you can add value to. Hear me, folks. When you look at, and I'll again use myself as an example, you look at the numbers, you look at the amount of episodes, you look at the amount of material that I put out on a consistent basis, yet you see the views aren't necessarily where I would like them to be, certainly not where I would like them to be, then what I can do for a major sports network that will contract me to do the play-by-play in terms of college football and all that kind of stuff, and what I could do for an organization that already has the platform to just bring talented folks like me in, then the numbers and the amount of episodes, the amount of material that I've already put out, then it starts to mean something. You see what I'm saying? That's what I mean. Don't just look at big numbers, but look at all the numbers so you see exactly where you fit in. All right. That is the key. That is the point that we're making here. What is the numbers of when it comes to the consistency and the consistent performance that you can track, and how does that help add value to an organization that you can actually work with, and you all just win together? Because as I explained, and actually, you know what, I'll let today's Move Swiftly thought. Well, I won't play it because we're running short on time. But if you look at what OKC did, the Oklahoma City Thunder did years after losing 3 league MVPs in Kevin Durant and James Harden and Russell Westbrook, you see they still won the championship because of the consistent numbers and the consistency that they have throughout the foundation, like the foundation of the organization. That's what you have to be understanding, all right? Adding value based on the consistent numbers that you're able to produce, and that is what you got to be paying attention to. Hear me clearly on this. You crack the code on this in your life. You will never have to worry about other people gaining control of the things you want. See, the issue with a lot of folks out there, a lot of you guys listening to me right now, is you've given other folks control of how you get paid. You've given other folks control about how you make a living. You've given some entity so much control over what it is you're going to be doing with your life. And you have yet to say to yourself, here's what I'm talented at. Here's what my money-making skills are. And I'm going to lean into these money-making skills because I know I can produce a certain amount of numbers. All right. That is a very key concept. And that is what being a wintrepreneur is all about. So again, if you are interested in hearing more about that, simply go to makeyourmove.com. That's MAKEYAMOVE.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your teamwork and your self-development needs. Would love to come in and chat about, book a meeting so we could talk about how we could get me out there to speak to your organization to help you guys understand the power and the producing of the results. So all that being said, tomorrow we're going to recap everything, and then we'll go right into Faith-Based Friday. We got Film Session Saturday, as we always do, and then Stay Hired Sunday. We'll be back this weekend talking about all of this stuff and breaking all this down. And then next week, we're diving into prompt to product, baby. Prompt to product, given this new AI-generated world and all that. So, stay tuned. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, share it out to anybody that needs to be listening. As one Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, checking out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.